The Ellora Caves are the most important group of rock-cut monuments in all of India. Between the 6th and the 10th century CE, over 34 caves were dug out of the solid basalt rock of the Deccan Plateau. To create this wonder of ancient engineering, an estimated 500,000 to 1 million tons of rock had to be removed, enough to build 4 times the Colosseum in Rome. Other estimates put the total at nearly 6 million tons, the same as the Great Pyramid of Giza. The Ellora Caves are an example of architecture in the negative, for instead of being built by stacking stones on top of each other, they were created by slowly and painstakingly removing rock from the cliff, until only a monolithic core remained. The largest of them all, the Kailasha Temple, is a huge, multi-storied temple complex, 82 meters long by 30 meters high, whose construction alone likely required the removal of over 200,000 tons of stone. Not only are these caves immense in size, but they're also lavishly decorated, with a profusion of sculptures, low-relief carvings and paintings. Of a total of 34 major caves at Ellora, 17 are Hindu, 12 are Buddhist and 5 Jain caves, each group representing the complex succession of royal dynasties and religions over the course of nearly a millennium in central Maharashtra. There are many mysteries surrounding the Ellora Caves, starting with the techniques employed for their construction, the true age of the caves, and the existence of subterranean passages leading to deeper and still unexplored levels. In this video, we will be exploring some of these mysteries, taking you through some of the most impressive and remarkable rock-cut monuments ever conceived by man in its thousands-years-old history. The Ellora Caves are located in central Maharashtra, about 30 kilometers northwest of the city of Aurangabad, and a 2-hour drive from the equally famous Ajanta Caves. The Ellora Caves extend over more than 2 kilometers of a steep basalt rock face, characterized by the presence of layers of different hardness and composition, with only the most finely grained being picked for detailed sculpting. Some of the earliest caves, like Cave 29, were possibly built by the Shiva-worshipping Kalachuri dynasty in the late 6th century CE and bear significant analogies to the Elephanta Caves. The next group of caves, comprising caves 1 to 12, consists of a set of Buddhist monasteries and prayer halls, built between 600 and 700 CE under the early Chalukya dynasty, which ruled over much of central and southern India from their capital city of Badami in today's Karnataka. Finally, the largest group of Hindu and Jain caves, comprising the magnificent Kailasha Temple, or Cave 16, was carved between 730 and 950 CE by the kings of the Rashtrakuta dynasty, who succeeded the early Chalukyas in the mid-8th century CE. Because of the different dynasties that succeeded themselves over more than 3 centuries in this part of central Maharashtra, the Ellora Caves reflect not only the different religions prevailing under each dynasty, but also profoundly different architectural styles and artistic sensitivities, making the question of the cave's exact sequence and chronology one of the great puzzles of Indian archaeology and art history. Cave types range from immense pillared halls, like Cave 29, to huge freestanding monolithic structures, like Cave 16's Kailasha Temple, to large Buddhist prayer halls and multi-storied monasteries. Some of these caves remain unfinished and provide interesting glimpses into how these incredible monuments were carved and decorated. It was only in the 13th century CE that the Ellora Caves ceased to be an active worship place and pilgrimage destination, after the region came under Islamic rule of the Delhi Sultanate in 1294 CE. Much of the destruction and desecration of idols and images can be traced to the time between the 15th and the 17th century, when the site came again under attack by Muslim armies, enforcing a strict prohibition of the representation of Hindu and Buddhist deities. It is even said that in 1682 the Mughal king Aurangzeb ordered the complete destruction of the Kailasha Temple. An army of 1,000 men attacked the temple and its sculptures for over 3 years, but could only inflict minimal damage to the structure. Although the caves were never truly lost, they were only rediscovered by Europeans in the colonial era and were subsequently studied and restored by the Archaeological Survey of India. For a long time, archaeologists believed that the earliest of the Ellora Caves were a set of Buddhist excavations at the southern end of the cliff face, numbered 1 to 12. These caves were built between 600 and 730 CE and consist of a total of 11 viharas, or monasteries, and a single Chaitya prayer hall. The caves located farther south were the first to be constructed in the early 7th century CE. Cave 1 is probably the earliest Buddhist excavation at the site and consists of a simple meeting hall with 8 cells. Most of the early caves, like Cave 1 and 2, are viharas, or monasteries, consisting of a large square pillared hall on whose sides open smaller shrines decorated with sculptures and monastic cells. Most of the sculptures that ornate the walls represent Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in meditating poses. The main shrine is generally located on the back wall of the cave, opposite the entrance. Huge Dvarapala, or guardian sculptures up to 5 meters or 16 feet high, stand on each side of the doorway. Inside the sanctuary is a huge sitting Buddha statue on a lion throne. Caves 3 and 4, located behind a waterfall, have a similar design to Cave 2, but are in poor condition. Cave 3 is mostly remembered for a rather unusual window with 2 elegant colonnades, beyond which opens a relatively plain interior with some badly damaged sculptures. Between Cave 3 and 4 are some ornate rock-cut shrines containing images of the Buddha in a meditating pose, flanked by the Bodhisattvas Padmapani, the protector of the Buddha, and Maitreya. Cave 4 is the best preserved of this group and contains some beautiful Buddhist sculptures that contrast with the otherwise unfinished appearance of this cave. A short flight of steps leads from Cave 4 to Cave 5, located on a higher level of the cliff face. Cave 5 is known as the Maharvada Cave because it was used as a shelter by the Mahar tribe during the monsoon season. This is one of the largest viharas, measuring almost 40 meters deep by 20 wide. The most striking feature of this large monastery is a set of 2 benches running through the entire length of the hall, suggesting that this space may have either served as a communal dining hall or perhaps as a scriptorium, a writing room where manuscripts were copied and illustrated by the monks. 2 rows of 24 pillars, 12 on each side, support the enormous weight of the roof, whereas at the end of the hall and along the side walls open a shrine for the Buddha and 20 smaller cells for the monks. Continuing along the same rock ledge, Caves 6 to 9 are partially ruined monasteries or viharas. Cave 6 contains some very fine sculptures, including a particularly striking pair depicting Tara, the Buddhist goddess of meditation, to the left of the doorway, and Mahamayuri, goddess of learning, to the right. These sculptures reinforce the possibility that the caves served as places of learning and meditation. Located on a lower level, Cave 8 consists of 2 connected rooms and a shrine surrounded by circumambulatory passage. On the farthest wall is another sculpture of Mahamayuri, goddess of learning, leading into a simply carved outer room on the back wall of which is a seated Buddha and bodhisattvas on each side. Cave 9 is the last cave of this group. It has a beautifully carved facade containing a series of 6 Buddhas framed by ornate arches, giving the impression of flight. The main shrine contains a seated Buddha with the bodhisattvas Padmapani and Vajrapani, protectors and guides of the Buddha, on each side. Next is Cave 10. This is one of the most ornate caves at Ellora, and the only Buddhist chaitya, or prayer hall, at the site of this important Buddhist monastery. The cave is also known as Vishvakarma, in honor of the legendary craftsman and architect of the gods. The cave is entered through a gate leading into a spacious courtyard, all carved from the natural rock of the cliff, containing cells on both sides arranged on 2 stories. The Great Chaitya measures approximately 25 meters long by 12 meters wide, and is divided into 3 naves by 2 rows of 28 octagonal pillars, each over 4 meters high. At the end of the nave is a huge monolithic stupa, in the front of which stands a colossal statue of the Buddha, seated in a preaching pose. The roof has beams carved in the rock, imitating a wooden canopy, with even the pins at the joints of the beams reproduced in the hard basalt stone. An elaborate frieze runs on top of the pillars on both sides of the aisle, containing the depiction of Naga queens as well as dwarves and entertainers, dancing and playing a variety of musical instruments. Next from the Vishvakarma cave is Cave 11, a large 3-story Buddhist monastery. The name of this cave, Dotal, meaning 2 floors, suggests that either the 3rd story was a later addition or that the bottom floor was still buried at the time of this cave's discovery. The 3 floors are accessed by means of a single stairway and possess a similar layout, consisting of a portico facade with 8 pillars leading to various cells and shrines behind. These multi-storied rock-cut structures are a perfect example of what we earlier referred to as architecture in the negative. They possess all the characteristics of real buildings, including internal stairways, corridors, windows, and doorways, except that they're not fashioned out of stone blocks or brick, but carved entirely from the rock of the mountain. An even more remarkable example is Cave 12, called Tin Tal, or 3 stories. This is a huge rock-cut monastery, perhaps the single largest Buddhist monastery in all of Maharashtra, articulated on 3 levels with a portico facade of simple monolithic pillars. The 3 stories are all of similar plan, consisting of a huge pillared hall with a shrine at the end and smaller cells along the side walls. Interior stairways connect the different floors, often leading to small, hidden chambers, beautifully decorated with images of the Buddha and Bodhisattvas in meditating poses. The top floor is divided into 5 naves by rows of square pillars, 40 in total. The side walls of the chamber are adorned with images of female deities. The back wall contains 14 representations of Buddha, 7 on the north and 7 on the south, each portrayed in a different meditating, teaching, or preaching pose. Two colossal guardian sculptures in an unusual crossed arms pose stand guard to the shrine. The shrine itself contains a colossal image of the Buddha, flanked by bodhisattvas and guardian deities, carrying different kinds of weapons. Cave 12 is also the last of the Buddhist caves at Ellora. Caves 13 to 15 are particularly interesting for they seemingly mark the transition from Buddhism to Hinduism, and are nested between the last of the Buddhist caves, Cave 12, and the Great Kailasha Temple, or Cave 16. Caves 13 and 14 are known as Ravan Kikali, and resemble in plan the Buddhist monasteries or viharas of the previous phase of construction at Ellora. It is possible that they originated as Buddhist caves, and were only later converted into Hindu temples. The walls of these caves are decorated with lively carvings, offering a striking contrast with the mostly static and hieratic style of earlier Buddhist sculpture. Cave 14 is a large pillared hall containing a shrine with a circumambulatory passage, which would have once contained a statue of the goddess Durga. The shrine doorway is guarded by the 2 river goddesses Ganga and Yamuna. A tour of the cave reveals a whole series of narrative scenes, among which are some particularly striking representations of Varaha, the boar avatar of Vishnu, Shiva and Parvati playing dice, a dancing Shiva as Nataraja, the lord of dances, and the demon king Ravana shaking Mount Kailash. A short walk from there leads to Cave 15, known as Dasavatara, which is approached by a long stairway and a monumental gateway leading into a large open-air courtyard. In the middle of the courtyard is a freestanding monolithic mandapa, with a 2-storied rock-cut temple at the rear. Because of its similarity with Buddhist caves, it is possible that this temple also originated as a Buddhist monastery and was only later converted into a Hindu monument, perhaps not longer after its completion. Other theories, however, suggest that the opposite may as well be true, and that the Buddhist caves represent an intrusion into an earlier Brahmanical pilgrimage site. The Hindu temple on the rear of Cave 15 consists of a huge pillared hall on 2 stories, resembling a Buddhist monastery or vihara, but containing Hindu sculptures and decorations on the walls and pillars. The finest of these relief carvings depicts the slaying of the demon Hiranyakashipu at the hands of Narasimha, the man-lion avatar of Vishnu. Other famous reliefs depict Vishnu taking his famous 3 steps, by which he measures the 3 worlds, earth, heaven, and the space between them. The descent of the Ganges, gently flowing down from the sky through Shiva's hair. Shiva emerging from a linga with flames around it, with Brahma and Vishnu in his boar form of Varaha digging down in the fruitless attempt to reach the base of the giant column. And Shiva as Tripurantanka, the destroyer of Tripura according to the Mahabharata, riding his chariot and about to strike the fatal blow with arms stretched. The panels are arranged in dyads on the opposite sides of the hall, in such a way as to suggest the equilibrium of antagonistic energies. There is also a Nandi statue at the entrance, facing the Linga sanctuary, although this appears to be a later addition. The Buddhist caves at Ellora are some of the last that were built in all of India, at a time when Buddhism was already in decline across the subcontinent. Their interest resides more than anything in them marking the transition from Buddhism to Hinduism, with many of the earliest Buddhist monuments and caves being converted into Hindu temples during the late 8th and 9th century CE. No more Buddhist temples and rock-cut monasteries of this scale and size will be built in any part of India after Ellora, representing both one of the grandest and latest expressions of Buddhist monumental architecture and sculpture of the course of nearly a millennium. The next phase of construction at Ellora, under the Hindu kings of the Kalachuri and Rashtrakuta dynasties, would see building on an even grander scale, perfecting many of the architectural motifs first introduced in the earlier Buddhist caves and culminating in the gigantic Kailasha Temple.